Welcome to the Open Adoption Project. We're the Nelsons. I'm Sean.
And I'm Lynette. Today we are excited to have an episode with another adoptive family. Today we have Michael and Tony on the podcast. They are an adoptive couple and they have one daughter who they adopted, and then they've also done foster care.
Some exciting news on the podcast front. We actually just hit 11,000 downloads. So thank you to all of you, our listeners, for your support and listening to the podcast. When we started, we had no idea the amount of people we'd be able to connect with and what we might be able to do to influence the adoption community. It's been really enriching. We've actually received several messages from adoptive parents and adoptees and birth parents, all saying how the podcast has benefited them and helped them. So we're so grateful that we can be here with you guys and for each of you who come back every week and listen to us.
And we're so grateful for the chance to be learning each week too from all of these different perspectives.
Honestly, I feel like I've learned a ton in the last several months. And now we'll jump to our interview with Michael and Tony. Okay, well, we are now on the podcast with Michael and Tony. Thanks, guys, so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you.
Our pleasure.
Well, we're excited to get to learn about you and hear your story. To get started, can you just introduce yourselves just a little bit?
Sure. I'm Michael, and this is Tony.
And I do talk.
When he doesn't have a cracker in his mouth.
Truly.
And we live in Sherman Oaks, California.
Yeah.
And we've been married for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And how long have we been together?
And we've been together since 2008, I guess you could say. So roughly, 13 years or so this Christmas Eve? That was our first date. That was pretty evident from our first date. We both wanted to have a family. We had both come from dynamic families. I'm one of 6. Michael is one of 3, and very funny upbringing, loud, raucous, sharing, crazy, good times, good family upbringing. A few years between the two of us. I'm a little bit older than Michael.
You are?
I am. It's a surprise. I wanted to do it right here on the podcast.
Awkward.
All of that, falsified documentation. I'm going to be 53, and Michael is 38.
Yes.
So there's a few presidencies between us. And we had a successful first date, and family was going to be foremost in our goals together if the relationship worked out. And it did.
Yes.
And what do you guys enjoy doing?
Oh gosh, it's so funny because we're right now working on our next adoption, actually.
Yes.
So we were just filling out all this information this weekend. Like sometimes you make like a brochure about your life and things together, and it's asking all these hobbies and so it's funny you should ask. I feel like it should be hot on our mind.
Yeah.
We do a lot of traveling,
Mhm.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Mostly to see our family. Sort of that, I don't know. We just really like, we have to stay active. We have a 5-year-old daughter,
Mm-hmm.
And we stay active with her, hiking. Yesterday, we took the train down to Oceanside, which is like San Diego area. And that was a fun little trip for her. We do a lot of dog walking and
Bicycling, beach. She helps me cook. We're a big food family.
Yeah.
And that's fun. Her job is setting the table for supper. And we bake, and we'll make food for people and do, little drops if someone's in need. Yeah, we're pretty tight as a unit.
By the way, we love Southern California and go there as
best.
much as we can. Beach time is good for the soul.
Yes.
Yeah. Taking the train down the coast to San Diego was great because she got the experience of traveling by rail and watching out on the ocean towards Camp Pendleton. There's surfers, there's dolphin, bright sunshine. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You guys it's an amazing place to live. How cool.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful up where you are in the mountains.
Oh, we
we
love it.
love it. Yeah, lots of good hiking. Yeah.
God, it's beautiful up there. Yes.
Well, let's have you jump in and share some of your experience with us regarding adoption and foster care. We'd love to hear your story and how it kind of is all unfolded.
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Please.
Okay. Well, as Tony said, like on our first date, we talked about family, wanting to have family and or have a family, and adoption was always just like at the forefront. Tony has 5 siblings. One of them, his sister, had already adopted as well. She has 2 daughters adopted from Guatemala, and my mom is adopted. And at that time, like um, Neil Patrick Harris and his husband David Burka were like at the forefront of like doing the whole insemination and kind of like leaving it to chance to see which one would actually be the parents of their twins. And that was always like a bit of I don't want to say a dream. We joked about it, but I think we both knew that adoption was really where we wanted to go instead of like a surrogacy, type of thing. Um, so yeah, we're very traditional. We got married where it was legal at the time, and
bought a house,
then we
got a dog,
Mhm.
planted azaleas.
Mhm.
Very traditional.
Mm-hmm. And then we decided to start a family.
Yeah.
So we started our adoption process in 2015,
Mhm.
and took the classes and did all the brochures like I was just mentioning, and met all the other people. And interestingly enough, we were the only gay couple in a lot of our classes, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's different for everybody. But for us, it just adoption made sense, Yeah.
And the training, etc., that Michael was talking about too, runs the gamut where it's very interesting, like, water safety, CPR, Heimlich, a lot of things that probably other couples wouldn't have to be qualified in before they start a family. Water safety.
It's true.
I'm sure that,
Yep.
person 1 to person 2 in the courting says, are you certified to boat safety and rescue? And some of the materials and the training that we would look at would be completely outdated. Some unbelievable in the one-sidedness and the sexism, but these are materials from an older date. Society is going in different direction, and to have to garner that knowledge, okay, we're gonna have to bite our tongues on certain things. It's fascinating, but crossing those bridges as we brand and market our heart is what we had to do. At the time, birth rates were down, and adoption was not very successful. And so we had a almost 18-month search before we were matched. And it was a wonderful, it was meant to be that she came to us, because our daughter is remarkable. And we become fascinating shades of ourselves. We don't rock climb anymore, and we paint rocks in the backyard. And we're gifted through so many small actions because of adoption and because of the love that came to us. So, hey, a little water safety along the part. It's nice. It's a nice conversation point.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we just kind of lucked out. It was the early part of 2016, and I kind of started to like lose hope already because we were a year into it, and I was just like, people keep saying, no when we submit our profile and our home studies, and I was like, I'm getting older over here,
I was like, did you show them the lasagna that I made? I mean, in color, it's gorgeous.
They still said no. And so we just kind of, I don't know. That's what we did. I decided to have a new project.
Yeah, we needed a project.
Something else to kind of focus on. So we decided to put an addition onto our home. And as soon as the architect finished the drawings,
a baby fell.
We got matched with the birth mom. So our daughter, her birth parents came to us because they actually already had another agreement essentially with another couple, and the other couple fell through.
Yeah, at the last minute, the
Well,
the couple decided to cancel the arrangement, and so they were spinning. They were personally affronted by this, and so late. And it's a series of conversations. It's a series of trusts that you have to earn and share with each other on something so incredible as adoption and multifaceted that to have them blown up like that was disturbing. So they came at us very guarded, and they came at us cautious as a same-sex couple, but earnest enough to have the conversation and still have some humor in their persona. And it was a very easy bond between all of us. And it was a 3-month pregnancy. Really, she was. We matched the end of March, end of May, and the baby was to be born in early September.
Yeah. So I didn't realize how, like, we had been let down so many times, if you will. You get your hopes up and things fall through. They had come with that same kind of like, we want you guys to realize we're in this if you are. Like, don't back out on us. And I was like, oh, no, we won't. You're not going to, right? And so I never kind of thought about it that way. They needed us as much as we needed them. After that, we kept in contact with them, and then we met them a month before. We flew to meet them, and
Well, the back of the house has been ripped off.
our house. Yes, of course. It was just a very interesting meeting. I guess maybe you have an idea in your mind of, we showed up to their door. We had flowers, a toy for their son, and we knocked and knocked and knocked. And I was like, okay, I text her when we got off the plane, like, where did they go? And I was like, oh my God, they left us. And then I was like, wait, are we at the wrong place? We're like, our neighbor's gonna start looking at us. And I don't know, we called, and here they had like run out to the store to like buy food for dinner they were gonna cook for us, and that was so thoughtful.
Yeah, and they were from not a lot of means, so they were getting plates. They were getting paper plates. They were getting, because they were going to cook and everything, but they didn't have certain basics there. And they went out to get that and scramble, and they were going to make sure that we were comfortable, and it was hospitality. It was lovely.
And then, so when they did come back, we didn't want to be there. Tony was like, "We're not going to be here." I was like,
"What do you mean?
I'm waiting right here until they get back from Walmart. I'm not going anywhere." So we drove around. So we come back, we pull in, we see the cars in front of their place. Like, okay, they're here, And our daughter's birth father is coming out. He's like unloading the car, just like a simple like hello neighbor, and goes back in, and we're like, guess we'll go in after you. We walk in, and then our daughter's birth mom is changing her son, and she's sitting on the bed, and she's like, "Hi, nice to meet you." I was like, "Hi, how are you?" In your mind, maybe someone like me, I just felt like there was going to be doves flying and this like halo over her head when I meet her, and it's like, oh,
right. It was going to be more of a Hallmark moment,
Yeah, and it was just very
after school special.
And then after we just sat down and talked all night. They were like old friends.
Absolutely.
We've met each other in maybe another life, because it was incredibly so.
Yeah.
They
had placed prior.
We asked them questions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and what about this and what about that? And did you allow the birth family or adoptive family to name?
A friend had donated breast milk to us, so we were going to be traveling with our own breast milk. She's like, okay, so I'll be delivering at this hospital. Okay, they're going to force breastfeeding on me. And she says, you have to be forefront with your birth plan. It's a birth plan. You got to be upfront with them and just tell them that they're not going to force lactation on that you're going to be carrying this, that they need to keep that available to you and to bring it to you. The nurses cycling will be changing, so be aware that when the nurses change, that next one's going to have to, they were like, well, we'd like, thank you for taking us by the hand on this. They have one child still in their care who's special needs. So their lot in life is heavy.
Yeah. They were really special people.
So yeah, when she delivered, I stayed in the room with her that night because she had her.
Oh man,
Oh,
that's the other thing too. That just heads up. You don't think about it, but typically there's the mom and the spouse in the room and the baby, and like with an adoption, there's a lot of people in this room, in a very small room where you're like, I just want to, okay, excuse me, and I'm gonna get her, okay, there, and you move this way, and because there just was no room.
Nurse is addressing her, as mom. She's like, not the mom. That's the mom over there. Yeah, that's me. I'm the mom. Hi. Did you try to breastfeed? They have milk. I have the milk. I told Bianca the milk is in the service station. It's right behind her lunch. Go find it. And the bio mom was so remarkable. She looks at us and she was just telling people like, I'm not sad about this. It's kind of like I'm with old friends, and it's easy for me to do this because I see what's happening and what's going to happen, and we can't do that, but you gentlemen can.
I was in there with our daughter and her birth mom, and I was trying to re-swaddle her, and of course, your first one, you're like, when I practiced, the bear didn't move. And she got up out of bed. She was like, let me help you. And I was like, okay, are you sure? Because she did make it a point not to want to hold her too much.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, our daughter came early. She was supposed to be a C-section on the 21st of September, but there was a harvest moon that weekend and everybody went into labor. So she came early. And so we were on a flight there, and of course we get there and there's an issue with the rental car, and anyways, the birth mom was texting us like, how far are you guys away? She needs to be fed and they want me to feed her. I'm like, we're coming, so she knew her boundaries, I guess, really. And so when she helped me swaddle her, it was a very sweet moment. Yeah,
we got there. She was born in the evening, and then the following morning we got there, and Michael was there just in time to bathe our daughter. And
oh yeah, so I pick her up and I have my moment, and like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life,
transformative.
And then I just start to notice she still has a lot of blood like in her hair, and I was like, don't these things come clean? What are you guys doing? And the nurse was like, well, we wanted to wait for you guys to give her a bath to show you. And I was like, oh, okay. Gotcha.
Now, mind you, she was scheduled for a C-section on Tuesday. She came on Friday night. And I was trying to prep Michael with some YouTube videos saying, this is actually what a C-section happens. This is how it happens. I said, yeah, you want to be in the room, right? I think you should be outside. I should be in the room. Oh, I'm going to be there. I'm like, oh, yep, this is what happens in a C-section.
Neither of us were there. Yeah. So then her birth mom really wanted to be discharged, but we had rented like an Airbnb close. And I went and I bought all this food at the grocery store, prepared food.
We were going to be there for a few days.
Like meatloaf and mac and cheese from the deli department. And I spent so much money that my credit card company called to be like, there's a charge in a state you don't really go to. And I was like, no, that's me. We just had a baby. And then we did get discharged, and the next day was a Monday, and all the paperwork is through. You guys can go home. We were like, what? Right now?
Yeah, we're supposed to be here a bit, We
were totally planning to be there for a while. So we, they in all your classes, they talk about the goodbye is really hard for the, the birth parents. So we wanted to say goodbye. So we took all the food that I bought and we dropped it off at their house. And she got to say goodbye. And they were both really good. We asked if they wanted to hold her and they were okay. Just she was in her car seat sleeping, and she looked at her and we took a couple pictures together, and they were like, all right, we'll see you later.
When we had come up to meet them, they had arranged to have a 3D imagery for us. So we got an advanced preview of, the mashed potatoes that look like a baby up on a big screen. And very, very sweet. They had, when we went to say goodbye, they had a little gift for her and for us. I mean, on top of everything they've already done. And it was lump in the throat moment. It really was. It was just, there are no words for that moment on such an occasion that you can properly meet the feelings or even the act. So you do the best you can, like parenting, and you just, pre-COVID and everything, you're able to give some hugs and just say thank you, and we'll talk soon.
It's an interesting moment, that's for sure.
Unlike anything else.
Yeah, it is.
It's
You've gone through this whole experience, that feels like months or even years, but it was merely a couple days, and lives were changed, lives were formed,
right.
And then it's like, I'll see you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is thank you big enough?
Right. To recap for anybody just tuning in right now to listen, goes from on our first date talking about a baby, to courtship, still hoping to have a family one day, to getting married, finding a home, to finding a dog, to getting boat certified and water safety certified, to search, to find, to prepare. And do you really prepare? You don't paint the nursery because everything's still up in the air, to getting matched, to the baby coming, to, okay, now you're pregnant in 36 hours, to booking plane tickets, getting breast milk, to watching your daughter arrive, to giving her bath, to all of a sudden saying goodbye to these people that all of a sudden became family. And the timeline and the gestation of it all is not, it's alien, to everything else that's out there, contrary to how you hear.
And what's interesting is, so my mom was born in a time where there wasn't open adoptions,
right.
So everything was closed, and she has very strong feelings about adoption, which anybody who was adopted would probably have. And so I know I took on a lot of her feelings being, her kid, and knowing I didn't know her father. He died before we were born, but I did know her mom, my grandmother, and having a personal attachment to that at the beginning I did not want an open adoption because I thought it would be so hurtful to my mom. And then I realized so much has changed in life, and so much can be gifted to you from knowing these people or that person. And so I had all these preconceived notions. Like, now I have such a love for this woman and, these people, that, because people often ask, like, this is the best. People say, are you going to tell her she's adopted? Like, well, she's got two dads. She's going to figure that out first,
The jig is up.
And so yeah, if and when she's ready, or maybe she won't be, whatever, I welcome the chance to see these people again.
Yeah.
And she she looks a lot like her birth dad, a lot like him. And he kind of just looks like me, like a white guy, you know what I mean? Like fair skin. And so people often say, like, oh, she looks like you. And I'm like, oh, her birth dad looks like me, and we're just white people. I don't know. Nothing special about us, and so it's a trip. But we have pictures of her biological siblings, and there's a couple girls, so she can have an idea.
Yep.
A couple of them she looks very familiar to, know. And so I have this whole book created for her, so when she's ready, we can look through it. Because right now, we tell her all the time, like, brush your teeth, get ready for bed, we love you, you're adopted. She's like, hey, but she doesn't know what adopted means yet, really.
She knows that her family is unique, and she knows that all families come from different origins, different ages. They can come from different points of creation. They can have different faces. They can have a myriad of possibilities to them. And that the center of it all is love. And the center of it all is, we're a family and we're a team. And yeah,
which is kind of how we got into then fostering.
right.
Yeah, so it just kind of felt like there are a lot of kids that need help, and we can be of service to help them. And the cherry on the top is, if one of them
Maybe one stays.
can stay, be adopted. Um, so we got into fostering in 20. I think we started in 2018, but I didn't finish. The paperwork was
Yeah,
even more extensive
even
than
more extensive than
adoption.
adoption.
Primarily because, well, now we have a kid, so
Yeah.
then she becomes,
A ward of the state, and then she becomes into our care, and we have to be.
Yeah, well, but also like
Con-
all her information needs
Yeah.
to go in, her immunizations, and then we knew we were going to need help, like babysitters, and so you have to get them approved, and it took me forever.
Right, they need to be live scanned. Your house,
a lot.
everything needs to be crawled up to because the government's involved, the state is involved. There's a privacy that needs to be respected on all of the parties of the child's family, etc. There's caseworkers, there's social workers, there's OT, there's PT, there's all kinds of stuff that's going to come in regional center, and all kinds of stuff that's going to come. There's a sea of people now in foster.
Yeah. So, but we finally got approved.
Yep.
Thank God.
Yep.
Took us forever. And then, so since then we've been fostering. We've had 3 placements, and each one has been reunified. And we were fostering boys at first because we wanted to get experience with a little guy. And then we just were open to whatever. We were like, okay, once you do one, you're done. You know what I mean?
And we're approved for 2 beds. And so we could take a sibling set. We were approved 0 to 3. So we'll take a newborn, which is, you give me a baby and I'm happy as a pig. And you know what? I mean, it's just the smell. And I don't mind the midnight feedings. I don't mind the swaddling, whatever. And he's just like, you're nuts. I said, I know. But we wanted to do it because there is a system right now that's overloaded with children in need. And there is a system that's not very effective. And we were educated as we went along the way, not just in classes of, all kinds of upkeep, implicit bias, and all kinds of interesting things. But we learned how DCFS works and how these families that get caught up in it operate. But we proposed it to our daughter, and we were hopeful that she was going to take, because when we first just talked about family, we wanted to have something of permanency, and that was going to be our cornerstone, and that was our daughter. And then soon after that, if we were able to help some people, would we want to do it? So it was discussed that we would do this as a family. We would do it as a team. Everybody's responsible. You help clean, you help feed. Even the dog would have to fetch a toy or something. Everybody, but we do it as a family. And the new arrivals were never embraced as sibling, or maybe they're going to stay, because you don't want to paint the nursery. You don't want to loft the balloon too soon. You wanted to approach it pragmatically, and you wanted to make sure that the child, the placement, had the services, etc., but also insulate your family and be smart about it, because emotionally you need to prepare that and have that wall up there. And also for efficiency, because you're going to need to do some extra steps at the end of the day. This child is going to be reunified. And so let's make sure that they get everything that we can do for them. If they need OT services, if they need socks, shoes, they arrived and they were sore ridden, and you're going to get the salve for them, and they need they need, and so you address it, and they have nightmares, and you're going to squeeze them. And I'm sorry, sometimes it's going to disturb the sleep in the household, but all of us together contribute to that. And the moment that one of us wants to step out of it, then we'll have a discussion on how we're going to have to table it. And it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, and this was after our first placement was the longest. He stayed for 8 months, and naive foster parents, we were like, he's going to be the one.
He might stay.
We're going to adopt him, but looking back, it was incredibly clear. His parents, they kept in touch. They called every night to check in on him. They did their visitations, they did their due diligence. But he was here the longest and through the holidays. And there was a lot of bonding and a lot of milestones that he achieved with us, which is phenomenal. And you do all this work and then they go back and you're like, oh, okay, now you're walking. Okay, But I think one of the things, the hardest lessons I learned was, I think you should absolutely treat your foster placements or children like they are your own, but raise them to the specific needs that they have. For instance, this young guy was neglected, and so he needed a lot of love, especially when he came back to us after a placement. He would be incredibly needy and need to be held. And, when you have two kids and you're trying to make dinner, and we did at the time had separate shifts. So Tony was the day dad. He had them during the day, and then I was the night dad. So, I'm cooking by myself, and
bath,
and then bedtime. It was very stressful. And a lot of times I would treat him like I would treat my daughter, like, okay, I can't pick you up right now. You just got to get over it. But then when you look back and you take all these continuing education classes yearly, I remember we were taking one on neglect, and like out of the 8 signs, he had 7 of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I should have picked him up. Why didn't I pick him up that night? He needed me. It was after a visit. He'd been all day with them, and he needed it from me. I was like, I'm fired, So that was one of the learning lessons, because he's gonna go back, and I wanted him to be. I was like, dude, listen, it's gonna be tough for you. You got to be strong, and I want you to be strong. But in that moment, I know that he needed more.
Yeah, he came to us as frenetic and reactionary and untrusting, and he'd been such neglect, and behind developmentally, and we had gotten him the services, and we went to the appointments, and we got it up walking, and we got it up talking. And by the time he was reunified, it was right about the time when the shutdown locked down. He walked around this house like a little Lord Fauntleroy. He had a strut, he had a chipper little smile, and I was like, Michael, Xanaloo, we did that. We did that together. And that, little knit, the reunification happened very fast. It was terrible. It was like, it was our first one, so we didn't know what to expect, but everything was shutting down with COVID and everything. And it was just mind spinning that you could call us at 10:15 and the baby is gone at 1:15. And he wasn't a baby at that point. He was, a year and a half. And I mean, it was mind blowing, but we had done it, and it was amazing. And from my experience out of it, the positivity, not long ago, I had run into the family, and they embraced the experience, and they embraced us like, we miss you. Our child misses your daughter. Here, you want to see pictures? We should get together in a park. They could play together. And I got to see pictures of a happy kid, so much positivity on that, and so we'll count that as a win. And at that time, we were having issues with a placement that had come back to us, who was not in such a good situation. And but look at what we've done in the past. And even still, when that placement came back to us, he recognized us, and we were fixing problems on that one. And, when that one came to us, we had a baby. We were a party of 5. We had a newborn. The newborn stuck with us for a little bit. We were actually the name that we had given the baby that didn't have a name. The bio family that took them on loved the name. And that little light left us and went out into 16. We got pictures at Halloween of that one. And I look at these little victories, and I hold on to these little victories because this is what we signed up for. Like parents, there's going to be wins, there's going to be losses. And, it's just... at the end of the day, we want to tell anybody that's going to foster, reunification is going to happen. At the end of the day, the government tells the states that needs to happen. The state tells their workers, and unless something horrible happens to that child on the other side of the line, that baby's going to go back there. So knit it its blankets, give it its squeezes, do everything in your power to keep your mind straight, and love that little son of a gun, and maybe they glean to it. And maybe they glean to it, and it helps them out of their dark situation down the road. It broadens their experience, and yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will say that when we tell people we foster, and they're like, "Oh, I could never do
I
that.
could never do
I could
that.
never get them back." I'm like, that is a really hard part of it, but that's not even like really it.
No.
It's there's you know there's this whole mentality going into it. That, so that's not even the hard part, if you ask me personally. Um, it's that your hands are a bit tied with everything, and my only advice is just keep advocating as hard as you can. You're going to get a lot of voicemails, and
You're gonna get it.
we've written like forms to the judges, and we've heard comments back like, "Oh, the judge didn't like what you wrote because it sounded like you wanted to adopt the kid." I was like, "Well, have your honor give me a call. I'll tell him, or her that the adoption wasn't the primary focus. The kid's safety and health is the primary focus." So
the transparency is not always there. Phone calls are not always returned. Truth is half spoken. So you need to be diligent and advocate, like Michael said. You need to really be aggressive on top of nurturing the little something that needs the extra love to come back from where they were. So get ready, get yourself a cup of coffee, and sit down and get yourself busy, because there's going to be some steps involved.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Tiffany Haddish, and she is a product of the LA foster system, and she does so much for the community as far as where she was raised, and I guess we could call it like Central LA. And she mentioned that when she gets to a point, she would love to adopt one day, because that's all she ever wanted, was to get adopted, and nobody ever adopted her. And I mean, she was breaking up while she was saying this on a podcast, and it made me incredibly sad, because I felt like there are so many Tiffany Haddishes out there that just want to be adopted, and she was the one gem. I mean, look what she's done with her life and her career. She is a forefront, and makes me want to like work with her on a project to get more kids adopted, because I feel like the system ties people up, and ties up children.
You have to wonder what got through to them, what agency was successful with them, that spoke to them, that let them persevere. What did they fascinate on and hook onto? Literature, art, science, mathematics, food. What was it that you held on to? What was your life preserver in the moment, that while you were in such a dark period, got you through, got you creative, got you successful? I'm sure every case is relative, but how important it is that you were reached, and that you were able to nurture your talents. It's because there's just, I mean, you don't want to say inventory out there, but there's a wall of people.
That's so awesome. I mean, I'm just kind of reflecting on both experiences you've shared, and I feel like you both have articulated really well a lot of lessons or messages that many of our listeners can learn from. And whether it's with adoption or foster care, everything that we do, everything we pour into these children is to bless them and to help them to have the best future that they can have, right? And no matter what the situation is, whether that's a child that's going to be permanently part of your family, or one that you may have an influence over for a few weeks or months, as much as we can love on these kids and help them have that peace or calm in life, it's going to help them in the future, even if we can't see that in the moment. So I love the way that you said that, and I think the feeling that I have is just like, I want to go love on my kids and make sure that they feel that.
All right, so a question that we get asked a lot from prospective adoptive parents is, how do you know if foster care or adoption is the right option for your family? What would you tell those people?
That's a really good question. How do you know? Gosh. Oh man, that's a really tough one.
Right.
I feel like if you're looking for a family, I would do adoption. Foster care, I feel like you're making a huge difference. And like I was kind of saying before, it's the cherry on top that you maybe hopefully one day get to adopt, because it's a much longer process. I mean, yeah, it's a much longer process.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's heartache in both for sure. There's a lot of resources that are spent in both. Um, but I think if you want to build your family, I I would focus on adoption, for sure.
For building your permanent family.
Mm-hmm.
What do you wish you could tell yourself, looking back at the beginning of your adoption journey? If you could go back and talk to yourselves, knowing what you know now, what would you share with yourself?
I would say be patient. Tony always tells me in life it's about process, not results, which I hate when he says it. But I would tell myself absolutely be patient, because I firmly believe, I think there was a saying years ago that adopted children are special, but I firmly believe that your child chooses you, whether it's through adoption or through flying into your belly and coming to the world that way. And so I think I would tell myself to practice patience. She's just got to find us, or he.
Anything you'd add? Yeah.
I would say lean into the social workers, the caseworkers with everything you got. Believe half of what they tell you and don't be afraid to call their supervisors. Lean into them. And I wish I'd had that at the beginning, because I mean, I'm not shy at all
For adoption?
but for foster. But
Oh.
I would tell myself that at the beginning, my younger self, with fostering. Ask the questions. Be the nuisance. Be the nuisance. Be the nuisance.
Be the nuisance. Okay, got
All
it.
right.
Let's see.
So, what do you wish that other people knew about adoption and building your family this way?
I don't know if it's a regret, or we're so open. I would share a lot of our story with friends, and people would kind of sometimes judge and misconstrue our daughter's birth parents' reasoning for doing this. And they'd often retort back with, like, oh, well, are they just doing this for blah, blah, blah? And I would be like, I don't know why they're doing it, and I don't care. All I care is that they've made the hard decision to place the child. They've chosen us, and we've chosen them. It doesn't matter. I wish that people, I mean, who doesn't want like a better world with judgmental free, but I wish that people just had the empathy to put themselves in other people's positions, like people are placing because they know they can't parent, and that might be from resources. It might be because they're in a bad situation. It might be because something terrible happened and some assault happened. And you share this with people and they're like, oh, I had no idea women get pregnant as a result of a rape, and they want to place the baby because they don't believe in abortion. Yes, that's a reality.
Right.
And are we open to that? Hell yeah, because it's not the kid's fault how they came into this world.
Yep.
So I wish that, I guess to answer your question, more people had a logical open-mindedness, and things aren't just so black and white. Like little Susie got knocked up at 15. Oh, okay, she's placing the baby. No, it's not always like that. And if she did, who are you to judge? Back off.
I love that.
Yeah, I think you said it pretty well.
So, I mean, you've talked about your daughter's birth family as, being part of your family or having a relationship with them. What does that kind of look like right now? And how do you nurture that?
We know how to reach them, and they, as Michael said, we had concepts and precepts of an open adoption at the beginning when we started the journey, and then that fell to the side. And how they engaged us also was just like, we don't need a card on Mother's Day, and I know that through social they can keep tabs on us, and we're good with that. And they have the preferred mode of communication that we asked them to do that, and that's cool. But right now, I think for about more than 6 months, they're they're out there, and we haven't heard back from them. So we know that they're well. We know they're watching. We know that if we put a concerted effort out there, we would get them. But we also know that their preference was we're good, and
And yeah, I've tried to reach out a couple times, and I don't think they're not getting back to us for any particular reason. But I know as she grows older and grows up and maybe has more questions or wants more information, that we'll be right there ready. Like, what, do you want a card? Should we write her a letter?
Absolutely.
Do you want a picture?
Yep.
I think I would love more than anything, especially with social media, if when she's older, it's still around, that she has a relationship with her birth siblings, of keeping in contact.
That would be very unique.
Oh my God,
for her extended family like that.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely.
And if she ever wanted to meet them, like I said, I want to see them again. So let's
just tell me when they're coming over for supper so I can prepare.
Or we could leave and then make them knock on the door.
That was a good circle back.
Nice.
Well, as we kind of wrap up, any other we have all members of the adoption triad listening to our podcast, right? Adoptees, birth parents, and adoptive parents. What would be kind of like your parting advice or words of wisdom, or kind of maybe your soapbox that you share when it comes to adoption?
Well, like Michael said, it doesn't matter where they came from or how they came from. You do your diligence, and in your heart and your head and your circumstance what you can do, and get ready, because it doesn't matter where they came from, how they came from, whatever. They're there now. Mm-hmm. All right, and they're there now, and they came to you for a reason. Okay, they chose you. You love them. The process is important, but what happens is the moment, and that moment is in your hands right now, and you do the utmost level best you can, and know that one came to you.
I also think about, I wish more people did adopt, in a sense, because it is such an open conversation now than it was, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And I know whenever I would share that my mom is also adopted, people will often reply back with, "Oh, did she ever find her mom?" I'm like, "Oh, she did, when she was born on August 29th, 1956. And my grandmother adopted her. That's when she found her mom." I know what they're trying to say, but I think people have this preconceived notion that if you're adopted, at some point you've got to find your biological family. And I think one thing I would like people to know also is that adoption isn't about knowing where you came from. It's about knowing who you are. And that means different things to different people.
I want people to know that it's not transactional. It ain't Macy's, you idiots. It's matter. It's emotion. And it's how the child doesn't need the transaction to complete them as a person. You've completed them in the love and the care and the education and the experience that you've brought them, because they brought that to you. And it's a circle. We all do it as a team, and everybody contributes, okay? And how we all got there is irrelevant at the end of the day. What matters is the individual that's forming in front of your eyes and what they're going to go forward to do.
Thank you so much, you guys. We loved hearing your story and your thoughts.
We appreciate the opportunity, and we appreciate your podcast very much so.
Hey, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Open Adoption Project.
We want to thank Michael and Tony for sharing their story and experiences with us. We think it's really important for us as members of the adoption community to understand different perspectives and stories, and so we're just glad that they were able to share from their perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's always valuable to hear from parents who have done foster care and the different challenges and rewards they feel from fostering connections with these children. Next week, we're excited to hear from an adoptee. Addison is an adoptee who was born in China, and she and her friend Libby host a podcast called Adoptee Meets World, and it's wonderful. I've listened to it, and I encourage you to check it out. And it's so fun to hear her experiences and her thoughts. and different things that she's learned, challenges she's faced, and just learning from her as an adoptee voice, always such an important and rewarding thing.
Thanks again to Michael and Tony, and thanks to each of you for listening to this episode of the Open Adoption Project.